This morning, we're going to talk about cultivating a prosperous attitude, which is not a small thing and has a massive impact on what you do in your life. John Maxwell said that attitude is the librarian of your past, the speaker of your present, and the prophet of your future. And I think that is just spot on. There's been Harvard studies that have shown that 85% of success is attitude. It's not talent. It's not education. It's not bloodlines. It's not anything, but someone's willingness and grit and mentality as they go about things. And given that that is such an important thing, and I personally can attest to that, that's what we're going to talk about this morning. So attitude is essentially how you see and feel about yourself and about life. If you really look at it in that context, it is more contagious than any virus ever. That you can walk into a room and spread an attitude in 1 second from the doorway of the room. You don't even have to actually go all the way in. You can just stick your head in the doorway and infect, positively or negatively, everyone in your sphere. It is totally magnetic or it is totally repellent. It's totally about the energy that you are giving off. And one of the things that I write in my planner every single day, I say everything 6 days a week. The 7th day a week, I don't play by any of my own rules. That's my rest day. I do whatever. But 6 days a week, written in my planner is, who will I impact today? Why do I say that? Why do I ask that? Because I know everyone you touch, you're having an impact on. You're not just, if you're indifferent to someone, that affects them. If you're kind to someone, that affects them. Obviously, if you're mean to someone, that affects them. But whatever you are in that moment is leaving an impact. It's touching that person in some way, shape, or form. And your attitude is also a box. It's a box for how you may see yourself. And it's about a box essentially for how others see you, right? If you show up a certain way all the time, people start putting you in that little box and saying, well, this is how Karen is. She's this, right? And that's it. It's going to be hard to break that box for them. So first, I'm going to share a little bit of, my personal story with this as those of you who, know me to a degree or who have, followed my content for years or are part of our team, then, you'll know some of this, right? You'll have some understanding that first of all, I don't teach, I don't talk about anything that I don't do ever. I'm not a guy who reads a book and says, let me teach you from this book. Now, I'm a guy who reads a book to help me do stuff in life, and then in the doing and messing it up and figuring it out, then I get to a place I'm like, okay, I can teach this because it works. And so that's what you're always going to get from me. There's an old saying, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. And it's absolutely true because it speaks to you getting what you expect in life, because you will behave in such a fashion that to bring that into existence in either direction. And so again, many of you know that, I started from my own little journey in life from a place of, I don't come from anything, and I didn't grow up in an environment to expect anything. And so I already started from that as the environment I was in, but I also had very low esteem, very low sense of self-worth, very low confidence, very low self-belief, in addition to anxiety and depression issues, in addition to being an introvert. And when you are young and an introvert and don't understand that you think something's wrong with you. It's not that that there is anything wrong with you. There's not. It's just when you feel awkward around other people, you think, what's wrong with me? They don't look awkward, but I certainly feel awkward. And so that mentality, that pervasiveness for me, I was a quitter. I never stuck with anything early in my life because I didn't expect it to work out. And so anything of value is going to be difficult. I don't care if you're playing a sport or you're studying a curriculum or you are, working at something. If it's at all of value, it's going to get hard, right? For multiple reasons. You're going to be operating in areas you don't have any experience or don't know enough. And how are you going to learn it? You can't read a book about how to do something and then go do it. You have to go do it, which means you have to go through the process. And so every time something got hard for me, I took it as a sign that, oh, I can't do it because I didn't expect to be able to do it. Whereas it's actually the opposite. If it's not getting hard, then you're not trying hard enough. You're not pressing further enough. You're not moving far enough in, because you have to get to the areas of life that you don't have experience in order to grow. It's not optional not to do that, but without an understanding that that was what was going on. For me, that was just confirmation that I can't do it. It's not, things don't work out for me. Why me, right? That was my entire, I wasn't just a glass half empty guy. I was there is no glass. I don't even have a glass. I can't even put anything in a glass. That was my mentality. So I got what I expected. And I never looked in the mirror and said, I'm the one creating this, because my mentality was nothing's good's going to happen for me. That's the universe is against me, right? That's how I was. So I just made excuses and I complained and I blamed, that I'm sure some of you can relate to that, because I'm sure that you've done the same before in your life. And then as you adult a little and you can look back, and adulting never ends, by the way. Being a child never ends and adulting never ends until we end, basically. And I'm not even sure of that, but that's a whole nother existential conversation that I'm not willing to engage by myself here. So, I've shared lots of things, but I want to about my journey, and I'm going to come back and share one little story that nobody's ever heard, that it's not in a book, it's not anywhere. I've never told it, I don't think. But anyway, first I got to show you this slide, my fancy slides, because this absolutely speaks to the power of your attitude, right? Because what you think, and I shared how my early experiences just augmented this in both directions. What you think will drive what you believe, and what you believe will drive what you choose, right? So what you believe about yourself will determine whether you say yes to something or no to something, whether you continue in something or whether you quit on something. So it determines your actions, and your actions determine your results. And they're either going to affirm the belief that you had, or they're going to blow it up. And so for the first part of my life, I just continued to affirm the belief, because my behaviors, my actions, my attitudes all led to the thing I believed. I just continued to behave in a way that made the same belief happen over and over and over again. When I was in my senior year of college, so I was 22, and again, I've shared this before. I was not someone with great ambition. I love to have fun. That's never changed. I still love to have fun. And so, the idea of working hard at anything, that was not a thing for me. It didn't matter anyway, because why should you work hard when things won't work out for you? You understand how that cycle can keep going. So in my senior year of college, I was actually sort of discovered. I mean, this is a weird thing to say, and I'm just going to say it. So I was discovered by someone for a major modeling agency. And this modeling agency, they wanted me to come in and they wanted me to work with them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I don't have to do anything and I could just make money. That's how I looked at it, right? So my major interview, to establish it all, was going to happen on a Monday. And on the Saturday before, I was out with a group of friends, drinking tequila, having a lot of fun. And I flipped over a fence and landed eye first on a cement block, and totally blew open the whole side of my face. Actually, I was fortunate not to lose my eye. In that, that's the first thing they said to me, is like, we can't believe you didn't lose your eye in this situation. So obviously that whole thing on Monday couldn't happen. And I remember everything, I remember how I felt about it, right? Because it was one of those, I have a chance for this. And then it was gone, right? And then that just was further, nothing good happens to me. But of course, I wasn't saying, well, I was the guy who was drinking tequila that night. I was the guy who was doing all these things, right? And bottom line is, that's probably, I can't imagine. I think that was God's way of saying, dude, this is not a good idea for you. Because if you go do that, it's only going to make you more of what you already are, which is not a good thing. So that actually happened to me again 3 years later, different way. But it was clearly that me being the person I was, that was not what my path was supposed to be anyway. And I'm a firm believer of life happens for you so that you can become the best version of you and do what you're supposed to do to contribute. And I've also shared, how even when I actually started on purpose in my career, I talk about this in the Three Circles Living book. I had two major things happen. And the first two times I was ever becoming successful, which were bringing me right back to the sea. Things always happen to me, blah, blah, blah. What's the whole point? All of that stuff was for me. It was all to develop me and grow me. And so why I was like that, even though I shared some of my perspective about why, actually isn't even relevant. It's really only I share that so that you can connect in some way to that, because it's very likely that you've had those experiences emotionally and probably still do in considering things you want to do in life. And so it's why I was like that is not relevant. That I was like that is what's relevant. That's what's relevant, because if I can change that in such a dramatic way, not instantly, because there is no microwave for things that matter, then you can too. You can completely change how you see things, how you see yourself, how you see the world, how you see opportunities, how you see your work. You can change it all if you're purposeful about it. But you have to be clear that your attitude is either a lid on what's going to happen in your life, or it's a launching pad for what's possible. And the truth is, and this is a real truth, but it's not a hard truth. Some truths are hard, but this one isn't. This is a nice truth. And it's a truth you can't hide from, by the way. The truth is that you are rare. The person, when you look in a mirror, the person you see is rare. There isn't anyone else exactly like you. And rare things are extremely valuable. So whether you see it or not, you have great value. You have a unique set of skills and affinities and gifts and talents and interests and experience. You have so many cool things that make up you. You're not missing a single thing. Maybe you don't speak like another person speaks. So what? I promise you there's some wonderful things that they look at you and say, geez, I can't do that, or I'm not like that. You have what you're supposed to have. And it's our job to develop that so that we can make the unique contribution that only we can make. But we cannot make that from a poor attitude space. We cannot make our contribution on the planet, to our community, to the people we love. We cannot make that from a glass empty perspective. We have to have the other perspective in order to do that. And that is a choice. That is the choice. And so the first part of that choice is to accept that responsibility. And so it's always mindset. I don't really talk about any topic without coming to mindset first, because no skill set on the planet will ever be fully grasped without the mindset to grasp it. It always comes before skill set. And so in this case, it's a responsibility mindset that we each individually affect and touch everyone in some way all the time. And we have to accept that that is a responsibility. So the first part of that responsibility is, how do we treat ourselves? Because we're not really going to be able to treat others the way they need to be treated and make the impact on other people that we can make if we don't take care of us first. So the first responsibility is to taking care of us, right? Because we are the goose. We are each the goose that lays whatever golden eggs we're going to lay in life. We must take care of that goose so we can touch as many people and drop some golden eggs on as many people as possible. And so first, we have a responsibility to ourselves. Then that responsibility moves out to the ones that we love, that are closest to us, because the impact of our attitude on them is massive, right? It's massive, right? There are few people who can make you feel joyful or hurt you faster than someone you love. You know that is true. And so we have to accept that responsibility for showing up that way in the positive light for others. Then we have our community, broader community, the communities we operate in, whether it's, for example, our MLT community, or it's the community you live in, or it's the community of the industry you work in. And then you have your job. The way you have to show up in your job is a responsibility. And then you have your pursuits, which would those of you who are part of our team or part of building out the greater community that we operate in, we have a responsibility to the community to show up in an encouraging and supporting and a positive light. And then if you are in leadership, you really have a responsibility because people hang on very little things. You're totally under a microscope, and your attitude will dictate the culture of an entire organization because it'll filter down into that organization. It's also, without the right attitude, you will never, ever have people want to work for you, ever. You will have people that will stay because they have to, which means you will only get minimum from them. You will never get their creativity. You will never get their loyalty. You will never get their energy. And the best people will never stay. They will not stay with leadership that has a bad attitude. That's just not going to happen. And obviously, performance is going to reflect that. So the attitude in leadership is a massive, massive thing, right? And that starts with the heart, which is why I teach servant leadership, because it comes from that heart. That's a full responsibility perspective, that I am here to serve these people, not to rule over them, right? So part of that, accepting that responsibility, is making the commitment to cultivating the right attitude on a daily basis. So that is the first thing. It's like you can't leave it to chance, because let's face it, the world is they're gonna feed you the wrong kind of attitude. So you have to be purposeful in this change. So one little simple rule is your past, your history is simply education. It has nothing to do with your future, nothing. It is merely information. That's all it is. You have to rewrite the old scripts. I talk a lot about this in 3 Circles Living, because there's really a couple chapters that are evolved around this. The first 4 or 5 chapters of that book are all about the self part, but not for selfish reasons, to be the best vessel to go to the next layers and serving and developing and growing an amazing life through service to others. Essentially, that's the core of the book. So there's tons in there about that. But the commitment part, I'm going to just share one quick thing about that, why that's so important. So, and I'll use myself as an example. I still, because of my, your hardwiring, yours, I call it your static lens, because we don't grow out of things in life, we grow on top of things. So every part of us, our 5-year-old self is still in there. That 10-year-old still in there. 20 still in there. All of those phases are still in you. You're still that. And so things that were steeped in you, like for me, the esteem, confidence things, that has never changed, ever. Has it gotten a little better because I have so much experience? Sure, but I don't buy my talent. I don't look at me and go, oh, I'm all this and all that, but I do buy my commitment. That I buy. I do buy my discipline to being my best and purposefully showing up. And so I'm going to show up, and I'm going to show up with a good attitude. Whatever's going to happen after that, well, I'm just going to do my best. And it's going to be whatever it is from a serving others mentality. But yes, Carol, good tip. Similar to the black box in a plane. So I share that with you, right? What has led to, my life and the journey was a commitment to myself to be better on a consistent basis. And then that discipline showing up in everything I do. So even when I take on anything, I have the same thoughts most people have. Can I really do this? Will it really happen? Am I good enough? Blah, 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 right? All the same scripts. But what I know is I won't stop. I won't stop because I feel that way, because I also understand the processes in life. And so I already know it's not really about whether or not I'm good enough. It's about whether or not I'm willing to do what it takes. Those are two different things, two entirely different things. And so I'm going to give you several things that all can really, really help you cultivate a prosperous attitude. But first, I'm going to show you another little of my slides. This one, if you've been on any of my productivity ones before, you have seen this, right? So this is a platform concept. So you have two circles. You have the circle of concern, right? The big circle is a circle of concern. So the circle of concern is everything in life that could happen. Everything. Like, could an airplane fall out of the sky on your house? Yeah, it could. I mean, it might not be worth worrying about, but it could happen, right? So it's everything in the world that could happen. And then the other little circle is a circle of influence, not to be confused with a circle of influence of people. It's the circle of influence of what you could affect. In other words, what you can do something about. Now, those circles are never going to be the same size because as far as I know, none of us can affect the weather. None of us can really affect what happens geopolitically. None of us can affect the changes in the currency market, right? There's stuff that we can't affect. But there's a whole lot that we can, right? So the difference in these two circles is focus. If I focus on the circle of concern as my primary mentality, then I'm going to live in a state of reaction because I'm going to have fear. I'm going to have panic. I'm going to have scarcity. I'm going to think about all the bad stuff that could happen. And that's just going to take me down a little spiral that's not going to go in a place I'm going to like. But if I focus on the other side, that is the positive side, what I can affect, right? What I can affect, what I can influence is proactive. What can I do something about, right? Most things you can actually do something about, right? I can't do anything about the weather, but I can prepare for weather, right? You see the correlation there? I can't affect that a hurricane might hit my house, but I can prepare in case a hurricane does hit my house. And then I can go, okay, whatever's going to happen, happens, right? So if you think about the pathway in life, we all start here. This first circle, the big circle is a circle of concern. When we're born, we can't do much. We can scream and we can laugh. That's pretty much what we have. That's our arsenal. If I'm hungry, I yell. If my pants are wet, I yell. If I want someone to hold me, I yell. That's my skill set, but at least I have that. That's the little dot. But as we get a little older, right, our ability to affect things grows and the circle gets a little bigger and then it gets a little bigger. Now, whether it gets much bigger than where I've had my finger right now depends totally on you because it's not going to get any bigger than that without being purposeful. And if it's not any bigger than that, then you can clearly see that what concerns you in life is dramatically bigger than what you feel you can affect. And that is a very disempowering place to be. It does not lend you to be proactive. It lends you to shrink, to live in fear, to live in scarcity, to live in doubt. But when you are purposeful every day to exercise things to grow and develop yourself and to build your attitude muscles, your commitment muscles, your discipline muscles, your focus muscles, you can get to a place where what's happening in the world has very little impact on you. Very little impact on you because you're too focused on what you can affect and doing it from the place of impacting others. I just heard, for those of you who are in America, the Kentucky Derby is today, right? The Kentucky Derby is today. I just found out 20 minutes ago. Right? Why? Because I don't pay attention. Right? I mean, people say, do you know what's happening with XYZ? I'm like, no, I don't. Why? Because it doesn't concern me. It's not a thing for me. And so I stay in the lane of where I'm trying to be, and I do the things to take care of what I can because I value peace. I value abundance. I value joy. I value fulfillment. I value making an impact, none of which can I do if I'm all coiled up in fear, afraid of what might go wrong. You see, that's all an attitude. So I'm going to like sprint through these things for you, and you can take whatever. That might work for me. It might not. But first resource is if you haven't gotten that and read it. I know I wrote it, so this seems self-promotory, but it's not. This book helps people. That's why I wrote it. I didn't write it to be a famous author. I don't want to be famous. All right. I want to be unknown. That's where I want to be eventually, however I can get there. But this will help. It's got great stuff in it. Okay. So I'm going to give you a whole list. Bottom line is your attitude. That's your mental. That's a mental state, right? And when you feel better, you do better. That's physical and mental. All right. So number one of many things I'm going to give you really fast. Number one, it's important for you to know why. This goes back to the responsibility and the mindset. Why do you need to really help yourself in a thinking and belief area and an attitude area? So first thing to do is consider for yourself what has been the cost to you of poor thinking in your life. How much opportunity have you lost? How many people did you not meet because you were afraid? How many opportunities to improve did you miss because you were scared? How many things did you give up on because you didn't stick through to build the belief in yourself? That would be enough. If I only gave you that and you truly dug into that, that would be enough for you to go, enough. That is not going to be the case for me anymore going forward. That is part of the Jim Rohn used to call it the two things that make change: desperation, inspiration. That's the desperation side. You know, what drove me to change my life many, 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 many years ago is I no longer was willing to accept what I had been accepting. No longer. And I didn't know what the other side was going to look like. I just knew that it couldn't have looked any worse than what I was allowing. And so why not? So the flip side then is you got to have goals. And you have to have goals that stretch you and have a bigger reason and a bigger purpose. Just having goals lifts your attitude to be working towards something. So what if whatever you do today like doesn't magically make you get closer? Every step actually makes you closer. Even a step backwards or a step sideways or a complete fall on your face helps you get closer because of the learning, if you are willing to have the commitment muscles to not give up on yourself, which is an attitude. Next is gratitude. I did a Facebook Live on this yesterday, a short one. If you will take, it only needs to be a couple of minutes. If you will take a couple of minutes every morning and steep yourself in the truth of the gratitude that you actually have for the life you actually have now. I know there's plenty of things you want to be better, but man, think about it this way. If you lost all you had right now in every capacity and then got it all back, how amazing would you feel? That's an interesting thing to consider. Why can't you feel amazing about it now? Think about it that way. Are you grateful for the people in your life? Are you grateful for your circumstances? Are you grateful for your health? Are you grateful for the opportunity that you are free to do and try and work forward? And I mean, that's an amazing thing. You're missing very little. So to have the gratitude that you get to is a powerful thing. It's a powerful attitude. It's a very simple way to start your day. If you just had these two, you're good. I'm going to give you more, but you're good. A third one, control your environment as much as you can. Wherever you spend your time, make that space the way you like it. If you need a space neat, keep it neat. If you need it light, keep it light. Put your goals around it. But also people in the environment. that leads to the next one, which is association. So people can be environment. Work can be an environment. If you work in a job and it's a toxic environment, you have two choices. Steel yourself in that environment and position yourself to be able to avoid as much as possible the toxicity and do not participate, or leave. Go somewhere else. Life is short. Life is uncertain. Do not spend your life in a circumstance you do not like. It does not make sense. All right? That's all. Simple on that one. So associations, big deal for me. Do not. Well, I can't tell you what to do. I take that back. I take that back. It's not my place to tell you what to do. I personally do not spend time around negative people. If I feel like I can't trust you or you're negative, you will not be in my sphere at all. You will have a hard time penetrating the bubble I will create. And same with social media. I don't look at anything that is negative at all. I don't participate in anything negative at all. Well, I spend very little time on social media except to serve our community and occasionally put out something of value that I think or fun for the people that are, my relationships. But that's it. I'm not a scroller. I'm not seeing who's mad at who and who's doing what and criticizing someone and blah, 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 blah. Who needs that stuff? That's toxicity, right? I'm into cleanse that stuff, right? So you got to make sure you control your associations. That is a really, really important thing. And on both sides, right? So not only do you want to control keeping negative people out of your sphere, but putting positive people in it. You can create the tribe you hang out with, right? So do that. Be purposeful about that. I'm the same way in my work. If I don't think you're nice and I don't think you're honest, I don't care what your skill set is, I will not talk to you. I absolutely will have no interest. No amount of money on the planet is worth that. And that's just my perspective. You can choose your own path. I'm just giving you food for thought. Next, and this is an exercise that's in the 3 Circles Living. Take a minute and catalog. Actually, this will take way more than a minute. Create a success catalog for yourself. The amount of things that you've successfully learned, thought through, and accomplished in your life is staggering, absolutely staggering. But you're societally conditioned not to remember those things. You're conditioned to remember your failures and your mess ups. And so maybe you had 10 major mess ups and those things are giant in your head. And you've had 1,000 things you did properly and accomplished and worked through. You can't even remember them. Remember them. They are a great thing to do. So that's a great exercise you can do. Also, your strengths. Man, you have so many strengths. You got to find a way to use them. And there are strengths you haven't even found yet, by the way, because if you have it all limited yourself based on what you will try, what you will do, then you are missing the opportunity to learn more about yourself. And by missing that opportunity, you are missing the opportunity to uncover strengths that are hidden from you, that are yours to use for greater levels in life and greater levels of service. And so you already have many strengths. And again, in the 3 Circles book, I give you an exercise on how to pull them out. That's why you have them. You have them because they're your tools. If you've got a bunch of tools, when you want to have them with you, important to go find them and put them to use. And just because you find one doesn't mean you're okay, I got that one. I'll pick it up someday. No, once you find one, you hone it. Hone it, hone it, hone it, hone it. Make it better and better and better. That's the nature of the strength. You can't ever become perfect, which means you can always get better, right? That's the beauty of that. Then obviously this is a no-brainer, but I got to say it because I make no assumptions. Self-care has to come first. It's got to come first, right? You have to show yourself that you are worth it. How are you going to lift your self-worth if you don't tell yourself you're worth it by acting that way? I know it's common sense, but apparently not common practice. And the second part of that is daily development. Read every day. Listen to something that lifts you, educates you, grows you every day. Every day. That's a beautiful thing about today's world. There's a lot of great stuff out there you can get for free just to listen to, follow, it's great stuff. You got to feed your mind. That shows you you're worth it, and it helps to build this. And obviously, you know, the impact of the physical, the physical has a massive impact on your mental state of being, which has a massive attitude on your impact on your attitude and on your confidence. And so it's really, in order to cultivate the right kind of attitude, this isn't optional, because you can't sustain it without doing this, even if you managed to, without taking care of yourself. Another one is do something scary every day. Just something. It doesn't have to be like, you know, you don't have to jump out of an airplane. I'm talking about anytime you have that little feeling. I'm going to call that person. Oh, I don't know. What will I say? You got to do it. Anything, you know, any little thing. Do something scary every day. You got to do that. If you're not doing that, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, then you start spiraling. You start feeling bad about yourself. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. Celebrate your small wins. You don't need to accomplish, you don't need to get all the way to the top of the mountain in order to celebrate. You got to celebrate your progress. You got to celebrate any small win. I celebrate all kinds of stuff. Any good little thing happens, I'm like, yes, yes, right? And there's tons of opportunities for that. Serve and give. You are wired to give. You are built to give. You are built to serve. Serve often. Give often. It will make you feel magnificent. It's like one of the greatest things you could possibly do. Next is disconnect from negative media. Totally. Just recognize media is not news. Right? It's not news. It's information. It doesn't mean it's good information. It's contrived information. It's agenda-sized information. It doesn't matter what it is, right? I mean, it's all over the place. You have to be discerning about that. But negative stuff, disconnect from that. All that does is feed your fear and keep you focused on the wrong circle. Keeps you in the circle of concern. You can't do anything about that, so why worry about it? Take care of what you can affect. And next, this is a big one for me, prayer. I mean, I'm in prayer every day. Now, if you're not a spiritual person, you can meditate, whatever it is for you. But you got to have that space, right? That quiet, feel in the world, feel in your, you know, the spirit space. Next is affirmations and affirmations. Affirmations are statements. Affirmations are questions. I talk about those in 3 Circles Living. Again, I gave you one of mine. Who will I impact today? Every day, because I know. And that's part of why I work so hard in the mornings, to get myself ready, because I'm going to start touching people, and I'm not going to reach out and touch someone if I'm not knowing I'm going to impact them in a good way. So I'm also not going to not reach out and touch someone. So I purposely make sure I get there. You see how that goes? By the way, once I start doing that, I feel even better. Next is journal. Journaling, fantastic power tool for your attitude. Not to mention, what a great thing for learning and perspective, and for problem solving, and for capturing moments, and for capturing ideas. I mean, it's really an absolutely powerful tool. And then the next one is enjoyment and recreation. The things you love to do, you got to be doing them. Don't say, when I blah, 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 then I'll blah, blah, blah. Guess what? That ain't happening. Someone says, well, when I retire, I'll travel. What do you, why wouldn't you do it now when you have the energy, you have the resources? Don't wait on life, live it. If there's something you enjoy, do it now. If you're overdoing it, that's avoidance behavior. And so I love to fish, but I don't do it all day. Right? Why? Because that would mean there's a problem. I was out of whack, because there's too much impact that I have to work at doing. That's part of the responsibility we all have in life. But you have to do some of it on a regular basis to feed your soul, feed your spirit, not to mention it's great for your mind. And then the last one is a morning routine, right? I know some people are like, I mean, there's even people who actually have, you know, messaging against the morning routine. Why? Because they're trying to sell a different routine, of course. And you don't have to wait. you can do whatever you want. I'm just telling you, morning routines are incredible. And I certainly know from a personal experience that I only get one chance to start the day. And so I start that day the best way possible. Okay, I threw a lot in there. I hope to do it in 30 minutes, but of course I couldn't. So that's the end of this portion. I have a few things as we jump into the team portion.